Okay. Good morning, everyone. Happy Independence Day. We have a very special event today. It's Kovida's idea. She's president of Indian Lawyers Association, Jodhpur, and she came up with this wonderful topic. And of course, I'll take the blame, if any, of coming up with making the topic a little crazier. There are topics, and then there are topics for marketing purposes. So the topic is um, that men have had 78 years to fix the legal system, and so far it hasn't worked exactly as maybe the framers and the founders of the country envisioned. And maybe we should give the next, not 78, at least half of it, the next 39 years to women to run and fix it. Before we go there, I want just a couple of sentences about Indian Lawyers Association. We started in 2018, industry body for the 1.5 million Indian lawyers in the country. There are 400 cities in India with a population of over 1 lakh, and we want a chapter in all 400 cities. And each chapter will be run independently. The parent ILA doesn't interfere, and each chapter will have the freedom to have its independent board of 16 people and their own money. They'll raise their own funds and they'll spend their own funds. A big chunk of problems in organizations is money. The parent will not be putting their hands in the chapter's kitty, and neither will the chapter get any money from the parent or interfere in the parent's finances. We feel 90% of the problems of this hub and spoke approach of running an organization will be solved. And the ILA national chapter will have its own board and will allow each chapter to do any kind of event they want. And the national chapter will do some webinars like this one in coordination with ILA chapters. And we'll do at least one national conference. So we have a wonderful topic today, and we will talk about the gender gap in Jodhpur. And Jodhpur is just a sample of all of India, the statistics and reality, and whatever is happening in Jodhpur is happening in majority of the country, and legal rights of women under Indian law. And we'll talk about the criminal justice system and gender-based violence and marriage, divorces, inheritances, and legal aid. And we'll talk about POSH. We have a POSH expert on our panel, Smita Kapoor, and we'll talk about women's political representations. And with that, I'll hand over the conference and the meeting to the president of ILA Jodhpur, Kovida Bharadwaj. Kovida, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for summing up the objective behind this conversation today. I apologize if my camera misbehaves today. I'll just fix it in a moment. But for now, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Wishing you all a very happy Independence Day. I'd like to start by saying that true freedom is not won on the battlefield alone. It is secured when every woman in the country walks without fear, speaks without restraint, and dreams without limit. I am Kovida Bhardwaj. I am currently pursuing my studies at National Law University, Jodhpur. I also head the Center for Policy Research in International Law, and I also work for a journal that bases itself on constitutional rights and remedies. It's my honor to host today's webinar, and thanks to Mr. Chog, we have a really interesting and a rather intriguing topic for today's webinar, which is men have failed to fix the legal system in 78 years. Can women fix it now? This conversation focuses on the urgent need for stronger women's representation in Rajasthan's legal space and, by extension, in the justice system of the country as a whole and the world as well. This also happens to be the first ever event of the Indian Lawyer Association Jodhpur's branch, organized under Project Nyayani. Now, Nyayani essentially means she who delivers justice. This actually sort of sums up our objective with these initiatives that hopefully will one day reach a point when women will actually be in positions of power within the legal system where they'll actually be able to deliver justice as well as secure justice for their own selves. It's a privilege to be joined by Mr. Navneet Chugh, who's also the managing partner at Chugh LLP, California. I also had a wonderful experience interning with his firm about a year back. He has been a mentor and the guiding force for ILA Jodhpur and as well as for me in the legal profession. Uh, Today, we bring together legal professionals from India and the United States to examine the realities behind the statistics, the gap between law and enforcement, the cultural barriers women face, and the reform that can truly make gender inclusive justice a reality. Uh, from the gender gap in Jodhpur's literacy and legal professions to customs that still override constitutional rights to stories of women who have changed the game, we'll explore where we are and where we must go. I'd also like to start by saying that since I actually live in Jodhpur whilst pursuing my studies, it's a common observation that every time I step out after about 7 p.m. in the city in Jodhpur, I happen to see no females out there on the roads. In fact, any female would feel unsafe to even walk on the roads in Jodhpur, which is why I believe that being a part of a national law university which functions in that city, it becomes more and more imperative to start from the very basic steps of letting them have access to basic education, literacy, after which we can finally move on to a point where we can actually discuss how to actually make them have more representation in the legal profession in the first place. Uh, with this, I'd like to start with our first speaker for the day, which is Ms. Smita Kapoor. She runs Kelp HR Consulting and has dedicated her career to POSH, which is the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Training and Compliance. So I have a question for you, Smita ma'am, that given your extensive work in POSH over the years, especially with corporates and institutions, what do you think are the biggest gaps in implementing workplace protections for women? And how can these be closed in regions like Rajasthan, where the informal sector work dominates? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kovida. Thank you, Navneet, for this opportunity. It's always a pleasure to be speaking in such forums because I feel if uh, at least 100 people are listening, if I can make an impact to one person, we are done. We have achieved the entire we've achieved what we have set our mission for. So, great question on informal sectors, Kovida. And I think Navneet spoke or you spoke about how Rajasthan is what it is in this space, and women rights have always been crushed. But Bhavri Devi came from Rajasthan. That was one strong woman because of whom we got this law, right? So, one woman who fearlessly stood for herself, who said that I'm not going to bend down for anything that anybody throws at me, and I'm going to ensure that I get justice. How much justice she got is a different conversation altogether. But she actually made that wave. And 2013, the sexual harassment law came because of her. I give all that to her. Now, Rajasthan, as you rightly mentioned, and specifically Jodhpur, Kovida, I come from Mumbai. So I know the difference. When I travel to these places, I know there's a difference. In Mumbai, I can travel midnight 12. Nobody will even look at me or even come and bother me. But that's not the case if I go to any city, any rural area outside of Mumbai. It's little scary. In fact, I get stressed if I land after 6 p.m. because I'm not sure on the road, including the driver who I've hired, I'm not sure if I'm going to reach safe. So that's a big thing that we have to achieve over a period of time. And I think it needs, and what did Mumbai do differently? Vis-a-vis the whole country needs to follow. Does Mumbai have issues? Of course, they also have their own issues. But do women feel safe on the roads after 7 o'clock? They do. Okay, and I travel any time of the day without even blinking my eyelid, right? So, what has Mumbai done differently? Something we have to look at. To your question on informal sector, yes, there are multiple informal sectors. I think strengthening of LCC in each of these districts are very, very important. LCC is Local Complaints Committee. While organizations which are formal, they have their ICC and they have to follow. And recently, Supreme Court also asked for a survey to be done that which of these organizations have incorporated ICCs, and they need to, every district needs to report. The problem that we have is manpower from government. While they implement laws, while they create laws, implementation or execution is a big question mark. While we are such a large nation, we have so many people who are unemployed. Unfortunately, getting the right kind of resources to execute these laws is a big question mark. So I think strengthening these LCCs or district office will be our number one work that we have to do. I also feel that uh, organizations like us should also adopt some of these areas where we could also support. Okay, we do our work in a really small scale, but we also need that wherewithal, or we need that strength to be able to create that multiplying effect. So I feel strongly also that women of that region should stand up and come together and work in a community so that they can raise the bar of their areas. So three things that I told you. One is strengthen the LCC. Second is ensure that we have, if we can, as organizations, NGOs or organization adopt, they do CSR jobs. Can they also help our government to multiply and work? And third is people in this region, especially women in this region, should be coming together and working in this space so that many more women can raise their voice. Okay, because I feel very clearly a mindset change is something that we need to work on, and a lot of work should happen in that space. It's not only about creating law and implementing it. I think the conversation should start from how the mindset of people should change. That if a woman is walking alone on the road, she's not meant to be harassed or looked at differently. Okay, so I'll take a pause here. I think I went on a monologue. You can have me for entire day and I can go on. So,
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really insightful. And I think truly local complaint committees would be a great way to go ahead, especially in informal sectors, which are more prevalent than the formal sector in areas like Jodhpur. In fact, that also brings me to a very interesting point of how the state of affairs is in the legal sector, particularly in Jodhpur, which is something that I also discovered after my conversation with Khushbu ma'am, who is an advocate at the Jodhpur courts as well. And this is something that was her input also, that the ratio of female lawyers to male lawyers actually appears to be 1 to 9, rather than how it should ideally be, which should at least be equal or somewhere close to being equal. But I believe that the current state of affairs in Jodhpur is nothing close to that, which is also something which is understandable concerning uh, the great veracity with which customs are still held to in Jodhpur, and the fact that literacy and awareness are very new concepts, considering the fact that things have only started changing once we've had National Law University in Jodhpur, then the outreach programs that we conduct, and awareness of that sort has reached after that. So, Khushbu ma'am, is there anything that you would like to add with respect to this? If you could
Am I
unmute yourself.
audible?
Yes. Yes.
Good morning, all of you.
Good
Thank
morning.
you, Kopita, for inviting me in this program.
It's a pleasure to have you.
The basic problem is, so I'm giving you an example. If in month of July, 10 lady lawyers join the court, they will keep on decreasing every month. Like till the month of December comes, I think around 2 lady lawyers will be left. The only reason behind this, we are not been, after so many years, we have not been able to give them a safe environment. Not in the city, not I'm not talking about only the Jodhpur city, but even in courts. This I think the situation have been a bit changed after the high court premises have been shifted to the other locality. After the new high court premises, I think sanitary facilities are there. We have we have new good chambers. We have a common area for women's. Then also, but one basic problem is the working hours. बाकी सारे जो भी sectors हैं that they works for 10 to 5, 10 to 6, 10 to 7. But in legal profession, 5 बजे तो हमारा first shift खत्म होती है. After that, 6 to 11, there are offices which work still. There are the certain good offices where I wanted to work, but they work for like 12, 12 बजे तक, 1 बजे तक वो काम करते हैं. But we do have our restrictions. We cannot work in those offices. हमें when we choose our offices हमको बहुत सारी चीजें shortlist करनी पड़ती है. ये नहीं कि we'll just shortlist the I just want to join this lawyer और ये मुझे सिर्फ क्रिमिनल में काम करना है. I want to join service law. We'll have to see मेरे घर से नजदीक कौन सा है, ऑफिस टाइमिंग क्या है, ऑफिस में फीमेल स्टाफ कितना है. ठीक है, अगर जो बेसिकली हमें बहुत सारी जगह नेगोशिएट करके चलना पड़ता है, विच इज नॉट देयर इन केस ऑफ मेल लॉयर. ठीक है, देन द सेकंड प्रॉब्लम स्टार्ट कि क्लाइंट कहाँ से आएगा. इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर अस. क्लाइंट का ट्रस्ट पाना तो बहुत ही डिफिकल्ट है. दे जस्ट कीप ऑन आस्किंग कि आप कर पाओगे, आप कर पाओगे, अदरवाइज आई हैव टू ऑप्ट फॉर सम अदर लॉयर. मुझे कई बार देख के इतना शॉकिंग लगता है कि द a male lawyer who is only having a 6 months or 1 year experience, he is getting more cases than me. ठीक है, I am along with litigation, I'm doing teaching as well. Reason being, I cannot survive on myself. I cannot survive on litigation. I'll have to do something else to make my family run, to make my to earn bread for my family. अभी I'm I think I am single, so I can manage. But मेरे दिमाग में हमेशा ये चीज चलती है कि once I'll have my family, once I'll have my children, how I am going to manage. Secondly, if I'm going to have children, how I'm going to manage that too. So things are very, very, very difficult for a women lawyer. And Jodhpur used to be a very calm city. If I if I think about the city in the last 10 years, तो बहुत different हुआ करता था. But I don't know how education बढ़ चुकी है, काफी नई सर्विसेज आ चुकी है, बट सेफ्टी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से सिटी बहुत ज्यादा मतलब बहुत खराब होती जा रही है. I think I too was in National Law University Jodhpur only. ठीक है, the problem which I used to face 10 years back, Kavita is facing all those issues till now. Nothing has changed. हम हमेशा सोचते हैं कि आज से 10 साल बाद तो चेंज आ जाएगा, 12 साल बाद तो कोई चेंज आ जाएगा, बट नो, things have not changed at all. I'm very proud of my students who are working for the legal aid camps, who are making the other villagers aware about the legal rights. Okay, but ग्राउंड लेवल पे वो कितना इफेक्टिव हो पाते हैं वो अभी तक मुझे इतना देखने में दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है. आई होप थिंग्स विल चेंज. आई थिंक आफ्टर 20 years हम लोग फिर से सेम ही टॉपिक पे डिस्कशन ना कर रहे हो. दैट्स ऑल गोविदा.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think that pretty much sums up the reason why it's important
But one
to
more
have.
thing to add, when I saw the topic, तो मुझे लगता है कि हमें हमेशा मेल वर्सेस फीमेल ये नहीं सोचना चाहिए. Women also bring a different perspective to the table. That should be that should be our major concern कि कैसी उनका पर्सपेक्टिव भी हम लोग लेके आए. इट्स नॉट दिस वर्सेस दैट. अगर हम वही करते रहे तो इट्स नथिंग गोइंग टू वर्क आउट.
Yes, thank you for sharing your experience with us. I think that pretty much sums up the reason for why having such conversations is important. If Navneet sir, you'd like to add anything or anything from your end?
No, please go ahead.
All right, sure. So interestingly, I was also part of the legal aid and awareness initiatives from National Law University, Jodhpur. But I think essentially all that we could do as members of a legal aid committee was to go to outreach programs to villages such as Surpura, which are close to our college, where we would conduct workshops, sort of, but they would always be something which focused on basic education. I don't think that we could actually ever reach a point of providing legal aid to those people, because legal aid is still something which is a foreign concept to them. What's more important to them first is for them to have access to basic books, or like access to going to school. So that is something which are definitely, we have roadblocks on our way, as was mentioned by ma'am as well. And as was also stated by Smita ma'am, that what actually brings about this difference between metropolitan cities like Mumbai vis-a-vis cities like Jodhpur, I think has been the difference of attention policy-wise which have been paid to these cities, cities which have more population and have generally then naturally end up having more employment opportunities, which is why it attracts more attention of the government sector in order to frame policies and make these places safer to live in. That's personally my perspective, but we'd love to hear from our speakers as well what they feel about this. With this, I'd love to move on to Renu ma'am, who is an advocate and an author. And Renu ma'am, your work spans both advocacy and authorship, giving you a platform to reach people beyond the courtroom. So, how important is public legal education in changing societal attitudes towards women's rights? And what role can a lawyer play in making law more accessible to women in rural areas and law students as well?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. Good morning, everyone, and happy Independence Day. And thank you to the Indian Lawyers Association for bringing us together for a conversation that is long overdue. I'm Renu Chaudhary, an advocate who has practiced in the Honorable Supreme Court of India and Honorable High Court of Gujarat and many family courts. I'm also an author of two books. My worlds of law and writing meet at one simple point. Both are about people, about listening to their truths, and about finding a way to make those truths matter. So when we say that men have failed to fix the legal system in 78 years, it's not about blaming men only, I guess. It's about recognizing that all these decades, the people making most of the laws, leading the courts, and shaping policy have been men. This means the perspectives and experiences of women have often been missing for decades and important decisions. Our legal system struggles with serious issues like huge case blocks and slow trials, lack of infrastructure, and processes that are confusing for ordinary people. Even if, when you are talking about the law students, when you have moot courts there, it's well, but then when same thing comes in the legal practice, it's not similar. In fact, in our times, we never had moot courts. We never had the practical experience of it. But then right now, many universities and colleges do have this thing. So it gives the exposure, but at the same time, the legal language is quite different from what we are experiencing in the books. It is not, and how to communicate or how to take instructions from the client is altogether a different thing, which again is not taught in the books. So there are problems that affect everyone. But under male dominated leadership, they have not been addressed in a way that fully includes the needs and the realities of women and marginalized groups. So I feel uh, women in law can bring a different way of thinking. This is not just about empathy, it is about combining knowledge with a lived understanding of certain problems. For example, a women judge or advocate handling a case of harassment or domestic violence, or maybe bring both the same legal training as a man, but also an awareness of a fear, the pressure, and the silence that often surround such cases. This makes the outcome more balanced, legally correct, and socially fair. But simply adding more women is not enough. That's what I feel. Real change needs strong reforms, a set number of women in judicial and policy making uh, positions, proper gender sensitivity training for all judges, police, lawyers, and easier access to justice for people who are intimidated by the system. We have seen proof that women can lead the important reforms. Like, for example, Justice Leela Sheth, the first women Chief Justice of India, helped frame the Justice Verma Committee recommendations after the 2012 Nirbhaya case. Her work showed that the legal reforms can be strong in law and also deeply connected to the society's needs. So, if we want to truly fix the legal system, I feel we must accept that when the leadership comes from only one group, whether men or women or any single perspective, there will always be a blind spots. The law's strength comes from including all voices, so it reflects the society it serves. Men have all Men have had almost, like, 8 decades to bring the changes. Women are not only capable, they have already shown results when given responsibility. The question now is whether we will give women equal space, equal authority, and the chance to shape the future of justice. Now, when Miss Khushbu Chaudhary was saying, that was very, practical things which she had discussed about. So I really completely agree that when the girl is not married, so they have that time limitation thing, then where to get this clients from? And the legal aid ground realities she talked about. Now, I want to add one more thing, that after marriage, when the lady is having the kids, so she has this 1 decade gap. So again, to restart is again a process to go through that again, because whatever your peers group have already reached to some level. So it again, it's a difficult when it's for the women's, and these things are not faced by the men. And in that context, I had written one poetry, that how the difficulties this women advocate faces, when to start again. So I'll read it. By now life is clearer, mapped in lines, married or not, no more confines. The kids have grown, they need you less, yet somehow life still feels a mess. A decade lost to home and care. Now stepping out, do I dare? Friends have soared, they have built their name, while I must start from dust again. Once I worked without a thought, no fear, no weight, no second shot. Now age whispers, not so fast, bound by ties, by shadows cast. A job search maze with no clear way, new sites, new rules, a fresh dismay. Options scattered, none in sight, just endless scrolling left to right. And if I dare to carve a space, home pulls back with soft embrace. You were here, you have always been. Why change now? Stay unseen? Yet something stirs, a silent call, a need to rise, to stand up tall. Not just mother, not just wife, but once again, my own life. With this, I end. And I really hope that when our things, because we are more empathetic to the topics, to the culture and everything. So if that combination is there, then we can do much more better in any field. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Renu. So, Renu, if you're made law minister for a week and God tells you you can only do one change in the Indian legal system, what would you change?
That's really an interesting question. That's a great point. I think it all comes to the fact that our legal system is facing challenges that go beyond gender. But women can and must play a bigger role in solving them. For decades, the leadership and policy making in law have been dominated by men. So I feel more collaborating and more empathetic solution based can be done. So changes would be like mm, I believe that change can be of
So we Indians love quotas, right? So what's wrong with one more quota that 50% of the judges in the country must be women?
so yes, I agree with that. The more literacy should be, people should be given the information, that knowledge should be spread, that how they can go about it, so that
Good.
decision making can be for the both the tables. They can create a more balanced and inclusive justice system for everyone.
Yeah, I think having more women judges uh, would be great because I think overall research around the world shows that women are generally more ethical and moral and know more about life because they have to deal with more life. So then they'd make more just decisions.
Yes.
I mean, I personally hate quotas, and I believe that everybody should rise to the level that they can on their own and not have the scheduled caste system and whatever other systems and quotas we have. But constitutional law tells us that to remedy a wrong, for a few years, you can have quota systems to remedy a wrong. And like the scheduled caste quota or the other backward classes quota was supposed to last in 10 years. And I'm told Ambedkar himself was against it, but everybody else wanted it. And so the constitution happened in 50, 60, the quota was supposed to sunset, which is the right thing to do because the first line of the constitution says everybody is created equal. But the second line says, well, except for 50% of the country gets a special quota. Okay, fine, whatever happened. And for emergency or short time purposes, it's fine. But now it's 78 years and left to the politicians, it will never change, ever. So the only way change can happen is if three judges of the Supreme Court say enough already. That's not, it's unconstitutional to have any quota for other backward classes. So now I personally, for the first time, talking about quotas with you, but maybe for 5 years, we could have a quota. Half of the judges, as it is, we're short. What, we need to 70,000 judges and we have 20,000. We're short 50,000 judges in the country. So the next 20,000 judges should be women, and that should fix a lot.
So equal space, equal authority, and chance to shape the future for justice.
Yes. And what better than being judges, right?
Yes.
One woman lawyer at a time is nice, but judges would make a huge difference because a lot of people will see these women judges on a daily basis. Okay, Kovida.
Definitely. So I think that's definitely something to think about. I also believe that we're kind of stuck in a loop of quotas that we're to such an extent that we're actually having to have more quotas to sort of make it an equitable space after having a certain amount of quotas already. So if we want more representation for any group, the only practical way to go about it in the Indian legal system happens to be that of quotas, because that's the only way you can sort of bind people to abide by the fact that employment will be structured in a particular way in a particular profession. And definitely, I think women as judges would make a bigger difference, because as Khushbu ma'am also mentioned, that it's not something that, so when you're a judge, it happens to be different from being a lawyer, that you don't have to look for clients on your own, and you're not dependent on the randomness of the legal profession if you're a judge. So that, I think, definitely makes a different kind of an impact. And I think Renu ma'am also shared a very important insight on this fact that it's not about having more women than men, but it's actually about creating an environment where women would themselves be able to and would want to sort of pursue their professions, which I personally believe can be done by first resolving infrastructural issues in a lot of areas, such as those in Jodhpur. I believe that, as Khushbu ma'am also started by saying, that the shifting of the High Court to a better location actually helped a lot of women lawyers practice there in a safer manner. And we were to have better security in areas in Jodhpur in general, I think definitely there would be lesser deterrence for women to actually practice law and to be able to thrive in their professions. And I think Smita ma'am also had something to say, that it's about equity in courts. So would you please like to elaborate on that, ma'am?
No, I was just taking Navneet's point of having more women judges. It's not quota. Actually, quota, we look down on that word, but it's equity. Equity
Affirmative
is
action.
absolutely just, I just switched the word from quota to equity, where we can have more women judges. And Navneet, to answer your question, and I'm absolutely a non-lawyer, and from that perspective, I come from absolute corporate, right? So the question that you were asking, Renu, and I was running in my head that is it, see, we get reviewed on performances every 6 monthly, yearly. So I don't know if there are such metrics available for the courts. All right. So is there, so my recommendation to the law minister would be that make it performance based, ensure that it gets published, it is there on their faces, evaluate people accordingly, give them promotions according to that, you know, not only speed but also the quality of the judgment that is coming out. I don't know if that is one recommendation from corporate perspective I can bring here. Yeah.
It's very good. Equity is good.
Definitely. Also, so if I could ask a question to Navneet sir on this, that what is the US doing better or right, and what are we doing? Probably, are we missing out on something, or how is it there if we were to look at it from a comparative aspect of how equity functions in legal workspaces in the US or places like California, vis-a-vis places like Jodhpur or Rajasthan, or even other cities of India for that matter? What happens to be different there?
Okay. uh, Usually I ask for 8 hours to answer a question like that. But I think before we even address the equity for women, which is a hugely important issue, we should talk about equity for human beings in general, the 1.4 billion people in India. And because there is no equity or justice or equality for all 1.4 billion people of India, then it's kind of hard to then say, well, how come women don't have equity? Nobody does. 50% of the country is OBC or Dalit or scheduled caste or Dalit, whatever backward classes. So then they are not being treated like an, an that we're all human beings are of at equal level. Then the 50% that who are not uh, in the Dalit class, then they're obviously feeling that we're not being treated equally and fairly. Only 4% of the country pays taxes. So the 4% that pays obviously is feeling like, why are we carrying the burden for 100% of the country? And the 96% that don't pay tax, fine, they're not paying taxes, but then they're also not participating in the country. And because they're not participating in the country, it doesn't feel like it's their country. And so if you don't pay tax, you don't feel like you belong to the family. Um, Now, the biggest creator of equity in a society is law and lawyers and the legal system and judges and the police. And I feel like if you look at the 100 people that got us independence, I think 75 were lawyers. And I don't know what happened, but I think when we got independence, there were 350 million people in India and Pakistan. And the 75 lawyers that worked very hard to get India independent opened the doors of the jail and said to the 350 million people living in India, Pakistan, that, okay, you're out, you can leave. But then the 200,000 lawyers that existed in 47 decided to stay inside the jail and lock the keys and threw the keys. So I feel like the entire country is free except for the 1.5 million lawyers in the country. We cannot advertise. We cannot have a website. We cannot have a booth at a conference. We cannot teach. If a lawyer wants to teach one class one evening, they have to surrender their law license. And the worst of all, we cannot practice law on a contingency basis, on a success fee basis. So the purpose of law is to protect the poor and the powerless from the powerful and the rich and the government. How do the poor and powerless get equity and justice? Only through contingency lawyers, only through lawyers that are willing to work on a success fee basis. And any country that says we don't allow success fee lawyering in our country has a sign outside the country that says no justice for the poor in this country, justice only for the rich. So the survey after survey shows that if you ask Indians, if you have a problem in life, what do you do? And the answers are, I go to my neighbor, I go to my uncle, I go to my mom, I go to my dad, I go to my brother, I go to my sister, I go to my pujari, I go to somebody older, I go to my professor. And the 11th answer is lawyer. So obviously, legal profession's not a great profession or it doesn't have a great image. It's not like fathers and mothers are telling their kids to go marry a lawyer. It's usually a business person or a doctor or an engineer or whatever. So if we want equity for women, and we have a fancy title that we've given men 78 years to fix the country's legal system, and they have failed, and now let's give a woman a chance. It's not like men got a chance either. Men are in prison. If the lawyers are not free, whatever happened to Article 19 of the Constitution that says there shall be no restraint on trade? The lawyers, the 1.5 million lawyers of India are in prison. There's nothing but restraint on trade. So if there's no equity for anybody in the country, there's no equity for the lawyers in the country, then hard to argue there's no equity for the women lawyers. As a matter of fact, the women should be harping on and saying that we all should be given freedom and the restraint on trades need to be removed. The restraints on everything need to be removed if we want to be a free country. So if there is freedom, if there is opportunity, if there is openness, and everybody has access to justice, then the country would be freer and women would participate more in work. There'd be less discrimination. And if the women are able to participate in work and participate in the economy of the country in a open, decent fashion, then that would transfer to the women lawyers as well. So what, 25% of the 450 million women that are eligible to work in the country? So that's 115 million people out of 450 million, and the other 300 million plus are not working. So between 1950 to 2000, the single largest increase in GDP of United States and United Kingdom was the entry of women in work. Now, fast forward to 2025, both in England and United States, more than 50% of the law students in the country and more than 50% of the lawyers in the country are women. Thank you, Kavita.
I think that does answer my question completely. I think it's all about there being an opportunity for everyone in the first place. And that also brings us to an interesting point about how equality influences equity. So essentially, as Navneet sir very rightly mentioned, that when have men gotten a chance either? Because it's always been about divisions with inside the society in general, and not just about a gender division, but we're facing currently divisions on caste and our social backgrounds, our cultures, etc. So I think definitely that is something which sort of holds us back as compared to, so for us to reach a point where we could economically look at an equal position, it's first important for us to also look at the social equality that we need to achieve first in the first place, and then to sort of move to a place where we could find a more equal space for employment for everybody, and could possibly move to the direction in which more developed countries have, such as the US and the UK, as sir also mentioned. So with this, I'd also like to invite our next speaker, which is Ms. Shruti Chula. She is an attorney and legal advisor. Do we have you with us, ma'am? Uh, Hi, ma'am. It's wonderful to have
Yeah,
you.
no, I don't. First of all, I'm trying to get my camera working. I'm sorry.
Sure,
Uh,
no
then
worries.
saying, and it is Srushti Thula. I would like to correct the name that you have.
Apologies.
I'm not able to get um, the camera working.
Go to
Yeah,
the
I
next.
guess I will have to do it without the camera, or somebody else is there, so I will pass on the mic to her. So I'll come back. If that is okay.
Sure.
If somebody is there, I'll just log it and log out and log in. If somebody else is there to take the mic, I'll just come back.
Sure, please come. Kavita, let's go to the next.
Sure, sure, sir. So next up we have Hetu ma'am, who is a partner at NK Amin Law Associates. Do we have you with us, ma'am?
Who do we have next, Kavita?
Okay. So after that we have Justice Janendra Ranka. Do we have you with us, sir?
No, we don't. He
Okay.
couldn't make it.
I think that's about it with the speakers. If we could have a discussion otherwise on certain other aspects of the issue, such as I think there's something that particularly would interest all of us is So we could move on to the section on hope and reforms and about how, what is the way forward. So after having discussed the problem in detail and about how the situation happens to be at present, what all can be done, and if any of our speakers presently with us would like to share any hopeful story that they would have come across or any instance of them having seen an inspiring woman lawyer or any sort of grassroots change that they've witnessed whilst their time in the profession or generally as a citizen about policies. Is there anything that anyone would like to share with us?
Including if anybody in the audience has any question, we're happy to take those as well.
Absolutely.
Hello, may I mention?
Hello, Bharat, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, sir. I'm working as a research associate at Ministry Environment, Forest, Climate Change. During lockdown, I get an opportunity to work with the ministry, and I come here from Pune to Delhi. And presently, I'm in Delhi.
Okay.
I have one suggestion that equity and equality. So, can it be possible as a reform that only absolute power corrupt absolutely? One Supreme Court, there is no any divisional bench. In a whole India, if we could have four benches like National Green Tribunal, then the burden over the judiciary can be minimized. Is it a kind of a reform that I am thinking supposed to do? What happened? Poor men doesn't get justice, as sir you said that they would go to for 10 options, and last option they are supposed to come to advocate. If the justice is accessible at their point of time, they would definitely contact them. And the same reform I expect from the honorable high courts. If the division is done, like Bombay High Court, Kolkata, and other high courts, if the work is divided as per specialization and nearest one, then it could be possible and it can be affordable to the aggrieved so that they can come and approach to advocate as a first remedy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bharat.
Thank you for that input. I think it's very interesting to note the fact that I think all of us agree on the fact that it should be about merit and it should essentially not be about creating more divisions, as Navneet sir also brought in the aspect of quotas. And we've discussed how the only reason as to why we even strive for greater representation of women is that we aspire for greater representation of merit, and somebody who truly deserves to be in the job, irrespective of the fact of whether they're a male or a female, should get an opportunity to as encouraging of an environment as any gender or social category, cultural category for that matter, should be entitled to. And I think we have Srushti ma'am with us now. So ma'am, for you, there's something that I wanted to ask you, that you've advised clients across different jurisdictions. In your experience, what lessons can India and particularly Rajasthan learn from global practices on women's representation and the protection in the legal system?
First of all, see, I always say, there are most of the people in here who comment when you see a woman driving. You would always comment on her driving. Like, for example, she is using brakes as her, she is using her legs as a brakes. You cannot control the vehicle, therefore she brings down her legs to control the vehicle. And that is one of the most ridiculed aspect of a woman's driving, who are driving two-wheelers, of course. For four-wheelers, there are other kind of idioms that have been used for her. Now, what happens is that during the making of that, when you are making that particular vehicle, there is no woman involved. The manufacturing line is completely devoid of a woman input. How do you manage a vehicle that has not been made, putting you into picture? That is how most of the laws are also made. Of course, in the past recent years, we have seen laws being made and work being acclimatized to women, yes. But the fact remains that most of them, most of the representation is done by men. When the making would involve, when the basics would involve a woman, and frankly, when women-centric laws are also made, then also at that point of time, you don't take the input of women who are actually the victim of those crimes. You take social activists who might be helping those women, but basically don't contribute much to the agony. In fact, if we see right now, most of the women-centric laws are being used or rather misused by the women who actually don't need it. The women who actually need, as Sir rightly pointed out, the last resort is an advocate. The last resort is an advocate, so women would practically won't. There are two people she would run away from: an advocate and police. She won't like to involve police. Now, coming to your question about more opportunities to women, right? The acclimatization of offices or any workplace does not involve or is not, how do you say, you see, there has to be, you cannot have equality for a 5 foot woman, a woman whose height is 5 foot, and a man who is 6 foot, right? That is equality. You cannot put them on the same stage. She will not be able to view if there is a 6 foot man standing in right in front of her. So you need to make a balance, and you need to equalize actually on that background. You need to give a platform higher up when it is needed. You don't need to make things same for everyone. Same is not equal. Same cannot be equal.
Thank you, Sushri.
Thank you, ma'am. Definitely. I think that is very much reflective of the reality of how things are and about how, as you rightly mentioned, women are often afraid to go to two people, which is advocates and the police. And both of them
When she
actually have.
approaches the police, she is seen as a homebreaker. So how the laws are supposed, in my humble opinion, how the laws are supposed to be framed, that the police should be the last resort. There should be other agencies involved which would try to solve the problems. There are many problems, marital or otherwise, which should not actually be criminalized but need to be sorted out. So there should be other agencies as per law which should be involved, which are other than the police. The moment the police gets involved, the degree of that whole dispute reaches its zenith. After that, if she wants a compromise, it would not be done, and that is what basically she is afraid of.
Absolutely, ma'am. In fact, I'd love to invite Smita ma'am to share her insights on the fact that we often see that when we talk about internal complaints committees in the organized sector vis-a-vis, if we prospectively think about local complaint committees in the informal sector, there's often this sentiment of hesitation, especially with women, to sort of reach out to these bodies because there's always a question of them being labeled as somebody who lodges a complaint in something which is considered to be uncomfortable and also is something which is an uncomfortable situation for any employee to be in. So how do we fight that particular sentiment, which I believe spans across regions, offices, professions? So, and I'm sure that you would have encountered this problem a lot of the time since you've worked with this for a very long time.
So, Kovida, first of all, let's acknowledge, yes, it is a problem because complaining is a big deal and going through that process is another big deal. Like last evening, I was convincing a woman employee who was planning to quit her job rather than making a complaint to IC. So she knows me personally and she reached out saying, Smita, I actually, over last 1 week, I've been coaching her to write that complaint. She's written it, it's in her draft. And last night when she was last evening when she was supposed to send it, she messages me back saying, I don't have the strength. Okay. So does it happen? And this is not somebody from a rural area who's not literate, doesn't know what are the consequences. So this is a learned woman who's from a metro city, knows her rights, knows that organization will stand by her, but she doesn't want to go through that entire process. Now, it's a big question. It's not something that whatever response I give won't happen overnight. I think it is a very systemic and it has to happen constantly and consciously. And all of us present here should be able to help to that process, including if I'm talking of corporates. How do you make that entire journey easy? the legal system, how do you ensure that victims are not blamed, right? Because as you rightly said, Kovida, she will be questioned. Okay, Rupan Deol Bajaj was not let go, right? Rupan Deol Bajaj, an IAS officer who was complaining against the IPS officer, she was questioned saying she had an agenda. She had to fight for 17 years. So unfortunately, we also have stories which are very, very negative. So I think that whole story needs to change, and how it will change, I think we need all hands on to this space. Everybody protecting, everybody taking care. And it again goes back to my same suggestion, that mindset change. We need to constantly work on that mindset change. And I always tell this, that, we got our independence in 1947, but the story of independence started at least 200 years back. All right. This is another war that we are fighting, another freedom fighting that we are putting up. So it will need a lot of effort from all of us here present and more to make that change, right? It has to begin. I always say, maybe I won't be alive to see the outcome, but I want to be a party of that freedom fight. Yeah.
You will be alive, Smita. That I guarantee you. Um, because you're saying we all need to do it, and yes, that is true. But one tiny change, tiny, can transform the country, and that is to allow lawyers to work on a success fee basis. So the wage theft of employees not getting their full share of compensation, the wage theft throughout the world is humongous. And in India, it's beyond humongous because we have 1.4 billion people, 900 million people of working age between the ages 15 to 64. The wage theft in a country like US is negative. Like there is no wage theft. As a matter of fact, the employees are getting more than they should get their fair share because of contingency lawyers. Any employee, 160 million workers in the United States, any employee in the country doesn't get paid $20. They go to a contingency lawyer and the lawyer files a lawsuit, and the lawyer gets money 25, 30, 35, 40%, and the employee gets the balance 50, 60, 70, 80%. Now, the 1.5 million lawyers in the country, they should be fighting. You're saying everybody should be fighting. And I'm like, there is no industry body for lawyers. There's NASCOM and FICCI and CII and NASOCOM and this and that and the 100 engineers organization and CAs organizations and doctors organization. There's no lawyers organization. 1.5 million lawyers don't have an industry body till we set up Indian Lawyers Association in 2018. And I was very hesitant to start because I started Indian Lawyers Association in United States in 1993. We have 30 chapters. All the big cities in US and Canada have a Indian Lawyers Association. Works remarkably great. Everybody's active. But in any event, so it's the lawyers that need to, and so the 1.5 million lawyers in India, 75, 80% of them are not making the money they deserve, and not even getting paid the average compensation for other professionals. But they need to make noise that we're not making money because of restraint of trade. Article 19 says there shall be no restraint on trade. Why is it that we're not letting lawyers work on a contingency basis? So what happens, for instance, in California, if an employee is not paid salary, uh, or overtime or meal break 10 minutes every 4 hours, or a lunch break half an hour after 5 hours of work, or overtime after 8 hours and double time after 12 hours, or a $5 parking fee reimbursement. And the employer says, I'm not paying you, or oh, the accounting will take care of it, or whatever, and gives them grief. The penalty is 30 days of wages for not paying $5. So if somebody is making $10,000 a month, and whatever reason his parking or her parking fee of $10 is not paid, they literally have a right to file a lawsuit and get the $10 parking and the And the penalty is $10,000 in wages. So the lawyer makes 5,000 and the employee makes 5,000. So every employer in the country knows that you can't cheat employees. So the wage theft in a country like India is so humongous, especially for women, that uh, there's no equity and all of that. And you're saying that you don't think it'll happen in your lifetime. It will happen. One of the biggest reasons for starting Indian Lawyers Association is to free the 1.5 million lawyers. So here's the most shocking statistic you're ever gonna hear in life, ever. There's 900 million people of working age in India. On official payroll is 7% of the country, 60 million people. 840 million people in India are not on official payroll, which means they don't get overtime, which means there is no security, there is no wages being paid properly or whatever. Or out of that is the 75% of the 450 million women not working. And then all the small businesses that don't register. But whatever said and done. So now if you look at a country like US or all other developed countries, like 90% of the country is on official payroll. Then you get medical benefits and dental benefits and maternity benefits and overtime and this and that, right? So all of this boils down to one tiny switch in the law ministry somewhere that says, okay, starting tomorrow, lawyers can work on a contingency basis and watch India's GDP become 10x in 2 years.
May I, sir? I would
Yes,
like to
of course.
put, yes, contingency basis are many of the clients do offer. But in India, the problem is that we take a lot of time in the legal process, the procedure, the judgment takes a lot of time. So, for example, if I take a matter today, I don't, most, why US comparison is not because 95% of the civil litigations in US get settled out of court through other channels, arbitration, mediation, conciliation, etc. They won't like to go to the court because the lawyers charge them a lot of fees. Most of the cases are into a legal process. They see the end of the process every time, and there are there are provisions of appeals naturally. So the disposal of that case takes so long that it would be very harmful for an advocate to take that matter, because I would probably get that benefit after 5-10 years. I don't know. That waiting period is very killing. No,
But
many
is it
clients.
legal? That is, everything you're saying is accurate, but is it legal for you to take a matter on a contingency basis?
No, as in I cannot hold a contract on that. That would be wrong. But most of the
Right.
clients do insist on that I'll pay you once we succeed.
Right. So this is the state of the country, right? The judges know, the lawyers know, the country knows that okay, you can
Yes,
convince a lawyer
officially
to
we
take.
cannot go for it because that
Yeah,
contract would not be binding. We cannot
right.
enter into a
And
contract.
this
Because
is the
no,
relationship between a
why
lawyer
that
and a
is happening?
client.
Yes, but why the basic reason for this was the basic reason for this when the lawmakers actually held up this was, as per me, I have not gone into what actually pursued in their minds. I am thinking that lawyers were supposed to be on a higher pedestal, and most of the litigants were supposed to be poor, downtrodden, and everything. So they actually thought, and it used to happen. The lawyers or people used to take away, used to make them sign on a blank document, take away their lands and everything under the guise of signing a contract. So it was to ensure those poor. Now, of course, the situation, the clients are smarter than ever, right? But the basic intention was to protect the downtrodden or poor people who may not have understood what their lawyers is making them sign. That is why I think this basic contingency clause was not there.
But
And
that bad behavior of lawyers should be governed by the Bar Council of India or the police or the courts, right? But you don't take
yes,
away.
now that situation is not there. As I said, the clients are smarter than ever. They actually are like most of the when any person goes to a doctor, he has read half the things on the internet. In
Yes.
here also they come, they have read everything. People in jail who are actually trying for temporary bail, they know who the judge is, who the judge is, who is going to who is actually hearing the temporary bail, and whether
Right.
the judge is lenient or not. They are
Correct.
more they are more
I wouldn't take criminal matters for the longest time. And then one day I was forced to. And I told my client whose brother was in jail, I said, listen, you're asking me to go to court tomorrow. He got arrested for arson. But I have no idea. He says, don't worry about it. He'll tell you what to do.
Yes, yes. So they know, they are more enlightened than us. Most
Hmm.
of the convicts in the jail who actually wanted to post, they are more enlightened than us. It is
Yeah,
a fact
all
in
of
this.
them have law library. All of them talk to each
Yes,
other.
yes,
What is
yes,
your
yes.
lawyer doing?
Most
And they have
of them are
nothing to
studying
do.
law in the jail. Most of them are studying law in the
Right.
jail.
So I went, and so he told me what to do. I said, okay, fine.
Yes, yes, they are enlightened as ever. It is very 10% of the clients maybe
But
they are.
but when is the country going to learn that the customers are smart, and why are you making a contingency
Yes,
contract
now we need
illegal?
something to protect the advocates as well. The clients are no. We need a protection. Everything is now appealable to the bar council. They give us those kind of threats. So naturally, lawyers do need protection. As you rightly said, we can't take jobs while if we want to litigate. Everything we can't advertise. That is the biggest of all.
We're in
We can't do.
prison.
But
We're,
still,
we're
people
in
are doing.
prison. Yeah.
Still people are doing it. Actually, people are putting it on Facebook, which is not very valid, but they do it. So
Dinesh is president of ILA Madurai. Dinesh ji, why are you so quiet today?
Sir, I'm not quite sure. I'm just listening the things and everything going well. And Jodhpur people are doing good, and especially women's.
we
Right.
Andaman people are also doing good, sir.
So how come Tamil Nadu has had a woman chief minister for 30 years, but we don't have a woman lawyers ruling Tamil
Sir,
Nadu?
and India, Indira Gandhi was ruling lot of many years in India. So the thing is, ma'am, like two of them have insisted that a lot of consequences in practicing. So yes, we can see this those consequences. But while the things is, many judges are coming up. We have Madras Court, many women judges and many senior counsel lawyers are there. They are sacrificing the things, and uh, the part is they have a break in the things of a lot of things like pregnancy, matrimonial life. These are the things, the consequences they are facing. Many they are in their professional things, but many women are coming beyond that issues and breaking these things and shining in these professions and admiring how these because a lot of Nalini Chidambaram is there, and we have Anita Suman judges who is senior counsel, High Court. Many council lawyers are there are working out. So the thing is, they have to sacrifice the things, and likewise, are men also not easy in this profession. Like another one, so getting cases is difficult for women. In these litigations, likewise, not easy for men also, because I am this in profession for more than 10 years. Uh, I have practiced in Chennai. I have practiced in District Court. I have practiced in High Court. Now I am with one of the senior standing counsel income tax department in Chennai right now. So I have shifted from Madurai, sir. I'm just informing you. And the thing is, it is not easy to get cases in litigation. It's very difficult. But you have to enlarge your networking skills and how you are connecting with social activities, social lot of network is there like BNA Business Network International and JCI and Rotary, and you have to network these kind of things, and women has to especially network these things to empower more and get more clients and to shine, and most ofly lawyers has to be travel politically with someone to empower themselves. It may be any political organizations. So that only because law profession and political organizations are parallelly running in this country, so we can make more things in this profession. So we have to search for these things. Thank you, sir, for this
Okay.
opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's wonderful that we've had insights from across the country on how this issue persists and how the country as a whole is dealing with issues of women in the legal profession. It was also really interesting to know from Navneet sir that a lot of people in India are actually not on official payroll, which brings us back to from where we started, is the division between the informal sector and the formal sector, and about how documentation is one of the biggest problems in India. Why, interestingly, while searching for a background for this discussion, I could not find a single statistic for the number of women lawyers in Jodhpur, because there is no information on the same. And the last census that we had was in 2011. And after that, we've always had some of the other reason as to why data collection has been delayed, because till the time we don't have the required data and the required information, it's difficult to sort of even identify a problem and to actually go ahead and solve it. I think there's one additional area of discussion that I'd like to open. After that, we can conclude the discussion. That a lot of the times it's not about gender, but it's also about the distinction between seniority and somebody who's junior in the legal profession. A lot of the times, the juniority aspect happens to be there for women because it's definitely difficult for them to reach senior positions. And when you reach a senior position in courts of India, it's sort of difficult to break that image. For instance, a senior advocate will automatically have a more sort of a robust roster of clients as compared to, say, a female advocate who is, definitely somebody who's newer to the profession, and also the fact that we have a very less number of senior advocates in India who are women. It's interesting to see how Indira Jaising in 2017 started a Gaun Wapasi movement, where she sort of held this idea that we should actually let go of the idea of having a separate gown for senior advocates and junior advocates, because that creates an unfair situation in the courtroom, which again brings us to another issue of equity. So if there's on an already made perception to somebody who's senior and established in the legal profession, which a lot of the times happen to be men, as a matter of consequence, that is something which actually violates, as Navneet sir also said, Article 19, which talks about the freedom to carry out a profession or trade. And in my opinion, that also extends to Article 21, which talks about life and liberty, because at the end of the day, everything of this sort happens to be linked to the way we should be entitled to a life of liberty, which of course encompasses profession. So if any of our speakers would like to add on to this, or would like to share any instances or insights on this, it'd be great.
I want to add on to something which Navneet sir said. Yes. Sir talked about the quota system, that he's against that. But I believe until unless there is a policy which clearly talks about quota, that you'll have to get that percentage to a woman, this government is not giving our share to us. Reason being, I'll give you an example. In every 5 years, the state government changes. Then with the change in the government advocates also change. Like double AGs, AGC appointments are there, GC appointment is there. So what I see is there are 12 double AGs working in Rajasthan. There is not a single lady appointment is there. Okay, AGC, I think there are only 2 to 3 AGCs are there. Public prosecutors, there's only a single public prosecutor, which is a female. Okay, the ratio is not even 1:9. So you're
Right.
not giving them आप वहां पे भी opportunity नहीं दे रहे हो, so that she can work there and she can shine and uh, she can excel in her career. तो जहाँ पे आप दे सकते हो opportunity and you're not giving them. And what I have observed that in last in the last government, my ma'am, she's also my senior from my college. She's an alumni of NIT Jodhpur. She was so good that she got, by seeing her performance in court, she got the panel of High Court. She got other panels. Not because someone helped her, like not because she was from belonging to some political party, but because by seeing her caliber. So आप प्लेटफॉर्म जब तक दोगे ही नहीं तब तक पता ही नहीं चलेगा कि कौन कितना अच्छा परफॉर्म कर रहा है. एटलीस्ट ये प्लेटफॉर्म ऐसा जहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट कैन गिव देम अ प्लेटफॉर्म टू शाइन, पर वो भी आप नहीं दे पा रहे हो. एंड द अदर थिंग इज कोटा इन जुडिशरी. We have 33% quota in Rajasthan for RGS examination, but अब सिचुएशन ये है कि we don't need that at all. More than 50% women are there in lower judiciary. In last 10 years जब से एग्जाम्स हो रहे हैं, 50% से ज्यादा women lawyer are getting selected as judicial officers. So I think we don't need that there. और हो सकता है कि बाद में, I think even after 5 years, male will need reservation in that platform. But हायर जुडिशरी में कोटा मांग भी नहीं सकते because we don't, हमारे पास में है ही नहीं. लॉयर्स, लेडी लॉयर्स उतना
Right.
अच्छी है ही नहीं.
But Khushbu, you said 2 minutes ago that the government is not going to do it. And the biggest problem I feel with society is that we feel that the government is something, a big animal out there, a ferocious thing that can't be attacked and whatever. The government is us, right? The government is people. And the connection to make the government accountable to people and make it for the people, by the people, is lawyers. So if you think women have progressed in foreign countries and advanced nations and have gotten 50% of almost everything, it didn't happen because the government wanted to do it. The government was forced to by law and judges and attorneys. So all the statistics you pointed out, that itni positions and 12 and this and that, and there's no women. Any developed country, any woman lawyer filing a lawsuit would win. Hands down, win in a minute. And for that, there's contingency lawyers, because not only would you win, you would get back wages, there's that, damages, whatever, and then the contingency lawyer would make money. So if you look at a country, let's say United States, and if you looked at the top 100 decisions in United States since independence, almost all 100 were done by contingency lawyers. So big, huge societal change doesn't happen with lawyers working on an hourly basis. Happens with lawyers that are passionate and hire a contingency lawyer who is passionate. Till 1970, lawyers couldn't advertise in the United States either. And then finally, one lawyer in Phoenix, Arizona, advertised on purpose to get disbarred. So he files an ad, he puts an ad in Yellow Pages. He was an attorney, CPA also. And he put in an ad, and the state bar got after him and took his license away because he refused to take the ad. So he filed an appeal, and the appeals court said, well, we know you did this on purpose. The advertisement is banned according to state law, but we'll give you your license back because you were just trying to do this for fun. Then he went to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, okay, the country got formed in 1776, 200 years later. The Supreme Court said, what do you mean you can't advertise? Haven't you heard of freedom of speech? You're an attorney, you're a CPA. You should be able to put an ad anywhere you want that you're an attorney, CPA. And so the Supreme Court ruled in his favor. Mark, or whatever his name was, Mark. And 1971, and then next day, all 50 states changed their rule. They had to. Supreme Court had ruled advertisement is fine, right? And so this women's quota is not being met, and women are getting their fair position. This is an actionable item. And I can't imagine, okay, maybe the first time somebody does it, the judge may not rule, but we need to make a big deal out of it. As much as possible, we need to go to court. If we lose, but we need to keep going. This is not right. And by the way, Article 14 of the Indian Constitution says all human beings are equal, right? And then look at how much inequality the government causes. When a child is born in the Dalit community, he or she is branded for life as whatever class. Now, if you look at the biggest companies of America, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Netflix, you name it, the top 10 companies that are ruling the world today, and um, Facebook, I mentioned, all of them were started by kids. Bill Gates was 15, 16 when he started Microsoft. Uh, Google was started by two kids studying at Stanford. All of them were started by somebody between the ages of 15 and 25. Every company, every big company that is now world famous. In India, based on your junior senior drama, this wouldn't happen, right? Is the whole country, you just said there should be senior advocates, junior advocates. What happened to equality of human beings? A lot of young people, your kids are smarter than you. And so for us to set up a system where there's junior people and senior people is just wrong. And the biggest example right in front of our eyes in our business is the senior advocate business. Like somebody created a Brahmin class called senior advocates based on XYZ. And the worst part of it is that the courts are doing this branding. The courts are supposed to make all human beings of India equal. It's these exact courts whose duty it is to comply with Article 14 of the Constitution, make everybody equal, are saying to this person, you're a senior advocate. That to me is more wrong than almost anything that's happening in the country. How can the court brand somebody a Brahmin or give him a superior caste? So this idea of junior, senior, and then uh, somebody posted that stop calling ma'am and sir. Like, this thing Smita posted. Uh, Stop calling, I don't know if you saw. Yeah, it's Smita from Kelp, the HR posh person. For that, Kavita, we have to stop calling seniors ma'am and sir. In Kelp, it's a strong culture to use first names. It helps to subtly think you're equal. So that's what we need to do.
Definitely. So I think that it's a very interesting point to think about how these things are reinforced in daily lives. And yes, I think that especially at the university level, I think Khushbu ma'am will also agree with me that thankfully our colleges now stopped having the culture of calling our seniors ma'am and sir, even though that literally isn't even a divisive factor at the university level. For instance, a second year student isn't that junior to say a third year student or a fourth year student, and it's these sort of ingrained things which carry on because it's the same people who are going to meet each other in the profession, and in those professions as well this culture ends up being carried out. And it's personally my opinion that after having had experiences with corporate firms in India as well, there's always this system of servitude which is really ingrained into the work culture in India. For instance, an employee for that matter, be it male or female, often will have to work even on Sundays because that's just how the system works. Nobody can sort of twist that, and a lot of that. And it's interesting how we're talking about that on Independence Day when we can still see the impact of these divisions which have been persisting for a number of years. And I think that it's time that we sort of gain independence from these divisions, which I think are rather easy to let go of, considering the fact that we're gradually opening up to Western ideas. And I think that Westernization happens to be a good thing in India when it comes to this aspect of sort of treating each other more equally and being more merit oriented rather than basing ourselves on a sort of a more red taped version of how things are supposed to be. So I think that it's been a really interesting discussion, and I'd like to thank every single person here who has given us our time for this discussion. Is there anything that anyone would like to add, or is there anything that we...
Thank you, Kovida, for coming up with the idea and doing this. Wish you all the best with Jodhpur. Please do an event a month on our um, little Bible that we have on ILA. We've listed 29 events you can do. Meeting at a park at CCD or having a dosa or somebody's house or somebody's office or going to the temple together or whatever it is, counts as an event. But the third Thursday of every month, if you can do something. And I know Renu and Srushti are in Ahmedabad and do these events there as well. And I want to thank all of the speakers for taking the time to join us today. Thank you, Kushbu. Thank you, Renu. Thank you, Srushti. Thank you so
Thank you
much,
so
Kavita.
much.
Thank you,
So much.
Smita.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Take care, all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.